Uber and Lyft and the other gig companies are certainly feeling the pressure from unions, protests, strikes, petitions that are being signed and passed around because the people are fed up. They've had enough, right? So, and this is where they're going to be spending a lot of money to pay for their army of attorneys to fight back. And we basically bringing in that money to pay for that exercise. We basically, it's like a vicious circle. We are paying and bringing in the money to pay for those attorneys and legals that are then fighting these unions, our protests, our strikes, etc. Right? So who's going to ultimately pick up the tab? The rider. The rider is going to pay more. Ads seek to counter democratic efforts to reclassify gig workers as employees, which would let many unionize. Washington, Uber and Lyft and other companies that use independent contractors as drivers are launching a campaign to head off democratic efforts to classify their workers as employees, which would allow them to form unions. The companies, which also include DoorDash, Grubhub, and several other, plan to run TV and internet ads in the Washington area featuring workers who say they prefer the flexibility of the independent contractor model over that of a company employee. If you want to work 20 minutes a week or 30 hours, I can do that, says one worker in the ad. When I need a day off to study for a big exam, I can do that, says another. The new advocacy effort by the app-based companies comes as some lawmakers in Congress and in state houses push measures to reclassify their part-time workers from independent contractors to employees who would be eligible for additional company benefits and permitted to join labor unions. The industry uses independent contractors to hold down labor costs and the fees charged to customers. The average app-based worker spends about 8 hours a week on the job. According to the industry's data, workers are voting with their feet and are flocking to app-based work because it gives them a better work-life balance, said Kristen Sharp, the chief executive officer of the new association called Flex. In an interview, our big picture goal is to ensure that people who want to be flexible can do so. The group said it plans to spend more than $1 million on these ads. Labor unions say that Uber and other gig economy companies exploit their workers by not giving them enough hours on the job to qualify for healthcare and other benefits. They have the support of Democrats in Congress and President Biden, who in last week's State of the Union address called on Congress to approve the Protecting the Right to Organize, the PRO Act, which has a provision that could reclassify some part-time app-based workers as traditional employees. When a majority of workers want to form a union, they shouldn't be stopped, Biden said. The new campaign echoes one that Uber, Lyft, and others fought in California in 2020. The California legislature in 2019 enacted a law that created a 3-step test to determine whether workers should be considered independent contractors or employees. The companies responded by qualifying an initiative for the November 2020 ballot to exempt drivers from the law. Uber and Lyft and other supporters heavily outspent labor groups and other opponents, and the initiative passed with a 59% of the votes in the majority. Democratic state appeals of the measure are working their way through the courts. The industry has waged other battles over employee benefits in Miami, New York, and Massachusetts. Now it is turning its focus on Washington, where Mr. Biden and congressional Democrats are increasing their calls to pass the PRO Act. The measure would create new labor rules, increase fines on companies that are found to violate labor laws, and generally make it easier for workers to form labor unions. The House approved the legislation last year, but it has stalled in the Senate. Union leaders and top Democrats say they believe it could win Senate approval, partly because it has been endorsed by Senator Joe Manchin, a key Democratic vote who has blocked some of Mr. Biden's other priorities. The creation of the new industry group shows how advocacy from Silicon Valley tech companies is evolving as internet companies priorities diverge. Some of Flex's members had previously been members of the Internet Association, a trade group created to give internet companies a unified voice in Washington. That group also represented such giants as Alphabet's Incorporated, Google, and Meta platforms, Facebook. The association dissolved last year amid tension over its members' conflicting priorities on competition policy and other issues. A separate group of companies, including Snap and Reddit, created their own group in 2020 to lobby against proposed changes in Section 230, a law shielding apps and websites from liability for hosting user-generated content. So you can write to Brody Mullins if you want, if you have an opinion on this, or you can join in. I'm going to leave the link. You can join in the conversation. There are 92 different comments at the bottom. I'll read a few. I've asked every Uber driver I've had what they think about this. Estimate equals 12. Not one knew this was a thing. There was the huge effort to reclassify them. When I explained what it is, each said they would not want to be employees. James Thompson says, so if wage inflation is not soaring as it is, the Democrats want to pour more BBB and Pro-Act wage gasoline. Mary says, Uber and Lyft were innovative 15 years ago. Time for newer and better ideas. Andrew Clark says, just look at how well the unionization of public work is fared. Janice Belcher says, good idea to head off unions, especially with the rising cost of gas. An Uber ride will increase and continue to do so as per gallon of gas increases. So she must be a rider, sick and tired of the increases. Well, guess what, Janice? We're not seeing any of those. We're not seeing any increase of your rider increase paying our gas bills. I'm just letting you know that straight up front. Gregory Caswell says, it seems the progs have decided it is time to harm our America with some more of their feckless incompetence. Bill Gossett said, unionize, then raise prices, then it's overpriced, then declining revenues, then closure, go for it. Joseph says, unions are way too outdated. Zach says, leave it to the Democrats to ruin an easy way for people to supplement their income. Amelia says, Uber and Lyft are no longer reliably available in my mid-sized southern city. During the pandemic, many of the people who drove for them shifted to food product delivery and never went back. We have to arrange for taxis again. Yeah. So the majority of these people are really riders. There's no, you can see there's no drivers chiming in on this conversation. Maybe you guys want to jump in. I'll leave the link, leave your comments there, or leave your comments under my video. Have a great day, my friends, and stay safe.